This week, I painted Aunty Mothma, Arch-Hag of Ifrian by Loot Studios, and I have to say that this chick is lucky to be finished. There's absolutely nothing wrong with this model. It is awesome. So many great little details in it, but I ran into some problems painting her wings. It was a skill issue, 100%, but for a little bit, I just had analysis paralysis and I couldn't even pick it up and work on it. So I'm painting this model up as a night hag for a future D&D game. Again, this was a request by my DM/husband. She is an STL, so we did print her, and I'm not sure if she counts towards my backlog. If a mini isn't printed, is it even part of the pile of shame? That's a really excellent kind of question we all should really explore. Are our STLs part of our backlog, or is it just the minis that you can physically count? I had originally started off using coal black as the darkest shade of my palette, but that tealy green just wasn't working well with the other colors, so I swapped to Styx Purple, which has a darker bluish purple hue, and I also brought in Nightmare Black, which is really, it's almost black, but it also has purple hues to it. I brought that in kind of towards the end of the process. You're going to see, while I'm base coating, several parts of this model swap colors as the video progresses. There's lots of repainting and lots of tweaking of the color palette as I work on this one. When I do make that final palette card, those are the colors that stayed, the ones that stuck at the end. So let's go straight to the problem child, the wings or cape that's coming off her back. I painted the front of the wings a few times. They're tucked underneath, and I knew once I glued her to the base that I really wouldn't be able to access that easily. So my thinking was that if I painted this, I would have a system, I would have a style, and I would know what I'm doing on the backside. And the back would just be a breeze. And I was totally wrong, absolutely delusional. I am happy that I started with this because it ended up being the hardest thing that I did on the entire model. I did end up using rubbing alcohol, 91% rubbing alcohol, to remove as much paint as possible. I did kind of a crappy job of it, but it got enough off that the details came back out and went with more of an ombre pattern. I was originally doing kind of a dragonfly or butterfly pattern, trying to work into those little cells. And it would have looked great if I had more skill, I think. So I abandoned that entirely and went ahead with this kind of an ombre, and I honestly like it better. It's going to be on tabletop anyway. I'm not trying to impress anybody, but maybe myself. So I'm really happy how the end product came out, but the path there was full of quite a bit of frustration. Now, overall, I am ecstatic with how this miniature came out, but I would love to hear if you've run into the same problems. Have you had a figure that you've worked on and messed up so badly that you just painted over and over and over the paint until you got it right? Or did you strip the paint and start it over? Comment below. Tell me about your little mishaps and misadventures. And then while you're there, if you feel like it, give me a little like and subscribe so that we can hang out and maybe paint together. I've been trying to paint a mini a week and share those with you. So I'd love if you would join me during my journey. I like to share how long it takes me to finish these as a hobby painter, and it took me about a week, 7 or 8 days. I really thought that I would be a lot faster with this one, and I really should have known better. There were a lot of small details, but also just the fear. The fear of messing it up, especially once I started painting and I started with her wings slash cloak area and totally just went sideways on that. So I did manage to fix it in the same session. It really was a day of painting off and on. And then after that, I just kind of sat her to the side for 1 or 2 days before I could get up the nerve to even begin painting any other parts of her. So this figure was printed on our resin printer, and I'm so spoiled by printing plastic miniatures. Reaper miniatures are the main thing that we usually purchase, especially when there's small pieces like the legs and the little bits of magic coming out of her hand, the sickle over her head. I'm terrified that I'm going to bump it or put pressure on those pieces and just snap them off. So there's some fear through the entire process where I'm resting a finger and I'm like, "Oh, don't press down there. You might pop off her limb." And then all this work will have been wasted. When I got into all the little bits and bobs, I added Skeleton Key, which is a metallic paint with a little bit of a blue tone to it. I used it really sparingly over the model, and then I glazed and highlighted with regular paint. And you don't really get a lot of that metallic by the end, but it's there, I promise. It's just covered with little bits and dots and dabs of everything else that I used. The color palette for this one is so fun. I went with kind of these night blues and then this electric feeling with the purples and the turquoise, this tropical blue color. And I actually picked the palette before I picked the miniature. Whenever I pulled the palette together, I'm like, okay, what can this be? And at first, I thought maybe I would do something like a mermaid or something under the water. And then my husband's like, "You should paint this night hag. I need a night hag." And I'm like, amazing. That's perfect because none of our mermaid miniatures, none of our aquatic ocean themed things were really sparking interest in me. And then he showed me this figure and I was like, that's it. That's the one for this palette. Now, I love these Loot Studios models because they're super, super detailed. And I've had my husband print some of them for larger display pieces, and they always look amazing. I'm also currently using a Loot Studios MIDI for my Orc Barbarian right now that I play in our D&D game. The downside to them is they're super detailed compared to the Reaper minis I like to paint. They have really, really small micro details and it takes a long time to paint them all. Reaper miniatures are chunky, they have larger faces. They're considered, I think, heroic scale would be the technical term. The faces on the Loot Studios models are smaller and there's lots of tiny details littered throughout the mini. There are also some objects in the fur or hair around her shoulders that I think are skulls. And when I looked at images from their website, it looks like they have some carvings on them and they have wrappings over the eyes that kind of secures them to this fur. And it doesn't really translate. That detail got lost printing at this scale. I honestly kind of wanted to print this at a larger scale and see how it comes out and if I could paint this again bigger and give all of those the proper attention. But at the end of the day, I didn't really think anyone's going to see any of that at the game table. I'm painting for tabletop. Everybody is several feet away. Nobody's judging me. So this is good enough. And I just painted it to a good enough level. I'm still making my color cards. I am really enjoying still putting these together and keeping them. I should get a binder with maybe some sleeves that I can slide them in. I've just been using regular cardstock. It's warping just a little bit, but it's holding up pretty well. I didn't really want to buy special paper just for this. So I'm very lazy, but I'll have to find a nice way to store them. This is my fourth one. Right now, they're just kind of getting stuffed into my craft storage area. They have their own dedicated place. But if I keep doing it and it keeps growing, then I think a binder would be in order so that I can kind of flip through them. And here she is, my finished night hag, I'm calling her. She does have kind of like harpy legs and crazy winged cloak, and there's kind of a hybrid of things going on here, but I think she's going to look great on the game table, and I'm pretty proud of her. So thanks again for hanging out with me while I paint this miniature. I hope you'll like and subscribe and come and join me whenever I paint the next one.